I heard pop, 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 multiple gunshots, and then screaming. The chilling testimony of Graciela Molina still echoes through the Galveston neighborhood where, on a warm September evening, 34-year-old Tiamoya Moore stumbled onto her front porch, her body riddled with bullets. As neighbors rushed to their windows, no one could have imagined the devastating truth that would soon emerge. The person holding the gun was Tiamoya's own 16-year-old daughter. How does a mother's life end at the hands of her child? What invisible struggles lurked beneath the surface of this family's life? And could this tragedy have been prevented? Welcome to Say Her Name, where we tell the stories of Black women whose cases deserve more attention, whose legacies deserve to be honored. If you're new here, take a second to hit that subscribe button. It helps our channel reach more people and ensures these women's stories aren't forgotten. I'm your host, and today we're examining the heartbreaking case of Tiamoya Moore, a devoted mother, woman of faith, and community member whose life ended in circumstances almost too painful to comprehend. Say her name. Tiamoya Moore. Before we dive deeper into this tragic story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. It helps our community connect and reminds us that these stories touch people everywhere. And if you find value in our work, giving this video a like helps others discover it too.
Tragedy unfolding in a neighborhood in Galveston. Police say a 16-year-old is accused of shooting and killing her own mother. And now investigators are trying to figure out why. The shooting happened just before 8 o'clock last night at a home on Avenue Q near 52nd Street. Orko Mana spoke with the family today. He is live from the Galveston Police Department with the latest. Orko.
Well, Sherman, the mother of the woman who died, told me over the phone that she heard the gunshots last night and said it was a complete surprise. She's wondering why her granddaughter could have done something like this, and that's the question police and neighbors want answered to. Galveston police descending on Avenue Q near 52nd Street last night after neighbors heard multiple gunshots. Investigators say a 34-year-old woman identified as Tiamoya Moore was found shot at a home. She was taken to the hospital where she died. According to police, witnesses told them the suspect was Moore's 16-year-old daughter. Have you noticed any previous issues at the home?
No.
That's what makes the shooting all the more surprising for neighbor Graciela Molina, who lives across the street. She says she was checking her mail last night when she heard yelling.
She was screaming. She was screaming. And I hear boom, 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 boom. Like, I hear 5.
Bullet holes visible in the walls of the home and other nearby houses. This neighbor says he was startled by the gunfire.
Yes, I was in the kitchen and I hear the shots and we come out and then all the police cars.
Galveston police say they were told the 16-year-old ran from the home after the shooting, but as they were processing the scene, she came back and was taken into custody.
This area is pretty calm. There's not really that. This street is kind of busy, but it's still calm here.
Cecily Henderson with the Resource and Crisis Center of Galveston County says when it comes to avoiding family violence, communication is key. What can parents and kids do to talk to each other to avoid it getting to this point?
Right. De-escalation techniques, keep talking to your kids. Even if they don't want to talk to you, just keep going back and back.
The 16-year-old is being held at the Juvenile Justice Center for the offense of murder. Police say it's still unclear what led up to the shooting and the investigation is ongoing.
Tiamoya Moore was more than just a headline or a statistic. To those who knew her best, she was a devoted mother who would do anything for her children. At 34, she had faced her share of challenges but remained determined to create a better life for herself and her family. Born and raised in Galveston, Texas, Tiamoya was known for her kindness and generosity. Family members described her as someone who would give you the shirt off her back. A woman whose compassion extended beyond her immediate circle. Her spiritual faith formed the foundation of her identity, guiding her through life's difficulties and providing strength during her darkest moments. After spending time in California, Tiamoya had recently returned to her hometown of Galveston. This move represented more than just a change in geography. It symbolized her commitment to turning her life around. Friends noted her renewed focus on spiritual growth and her dedication to creating stability for her children, including her 16-year-old daughter. She was kind, loving, and willing to do anything for her children, recalled Alicia Giesinger, a close family member and friend. This maternal devotion defined much of Tiamoya's identity. Despite whatever personal struggles she faced, her children remained at the center of her world. Those who knew Tiamoya spoke of her resilience, how she faced setbacks with determination and refused to be defined by her past mistakes. She was actively working to better herself, embracing her spirituality as a guiding force. Her home on Avenue Q represented not just a physical space but a fresh start, a place where she could rebuild and strengthen family bonds. In a community where everyone seemed to know each other, Tiamoya had established herself as someone reliable, someone who showed up for others. Neighbors recalled her friendly demeanor, how she would check in on elderly residents or offer help without being asked. These small acts of kindness painted a picture of a woman deeply connected to her community and invested in its well-being. What makes Tiamoya's story particularly heartbreaking is the contrast between how she lived, with love, faith, and dedication to family, and how her life ended. The woman who gave so much to others, especially her children, would ultimately die at the hands of one of them. This devastating irony underscores the complexity of family relationships and the sometimes invisible struggles that can exist beneath seemingly normal surfaces. September 11, 2025, began as an ordinary Thursday in Galveston. The coastal Texas city was experiencing typical late summer weather, warm and humid, with temperatures hovering in the high 80s. For Tiamoya Moore, it was a day like any other, filled with routine activities and family responsibilities. As evening approached, neighbors later recalled seeing Tiamoya around her home in the 5100 block of Avenue Q, near 52nd Street. This residential area of Galveston, with its modest homes and familiar faces, had been Tiamoya's community since her return from California. She appeared to be going about her normal activities, giving no indication that anything was amiss. What happened inside that home in the hours leading up to 7:49 p.m. remains largely unknown to the public. What we do know is that at some point, a confrontation occurred between Tiamoya and her 16-year-old daughter. The nature of this confrontation, what was said, what tensions might have been building, what finally triggered the violence, has not been fully disclosed by authorities or family members. At 7:49 p.m., the Galveston Police Department received an emergency call reporting that a woman had been shot multiple times at a residence on Avenue Q. The caller, whose identity has not been publicly released, reported hearing gunshots and screaming coming from Tiamoya's home. Graciela Molina, a neighbor who lived nearby, later described the chilling moment to local news. "I heard pop, 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 multiple gunshots, and then screaming. It was terrifying. I knew something terrible had happened." Other neighbors reported similar accounts, the sound of gunfire shattering the evening quiet and drawing people to their windows and doors in alarm. Police units were immediately dispatched to the scene. Upon arrival, officers found a horrific sight: Tiamoya Moore lying on the front porch of her home, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Despite being grievously injured, Tiamoya was still alive when first responders reached her. Emergency medical personnel worked frantically to stabilize her condition. As neighbors watched in shock from behind police tape, paramedics loaded Tiamoya into an ambulance and rushed her to a nearby hospital. Despite the best efforts of medical staff, the injuries proved too severe. Tiamoya Moore was pronounced dead shortly after arrival at the hospital. Back at the scene, police secured the area and began their investigation. Initial witness statements indicated that the shooter had fled on foot immediately after the incident. Officers began canvassing the neighborhood, searching for the suspect and gathering evidence. They recovered a firearm near the crime scene, which they believed to be the weapon used in the shooting. As darkness fell over Galveston that night, the community was left reeling. A mother was dead, a suspect was at large, and a family was forever changed. But perhaps the most shocking development was yet to come. As police processed the crime scene on Avenue Q, collecting evidence and interviewing witnesses, a stunning development occurred. The suspect, who had initially fled on foot after the shooting, returned voluntarily to the scene. Without resistance, the individual was taken into custody by Galveston police officers. The identity of the suspect sent shockwaves through the community. Tiamoya Moore's own 16-year-old daughter had returned to the scene and was now in police custody. This revelation transformed an already tragic homicide into something even more complex and heartbreaking. A case of alleged matricide that left family, friends, and neighbors struggling to comprehend what had happened. Investigators worked methodically through the night, documenting the crime scene and collecting physical evidence. The firearm recovered near the scene was secured and sent for ballistic testing. Preliminary examination suggested it was indeed the weapon used to shoot Tiamoya multiple times. The teenager was transported to the Galveston Police Department for questioning. Due to her age, special protocols for juvenile suspects were followed, including notification of appropriate child welfare authorities and ensuring proper legal representation. After initial processing, she was transferred to the Jerry J. Esmond Juvenile Justice Center, where she would be held as the legal process began. Formal charges of murder were filed against the 16-year-old. Despite her juvenile status, the seriousness of the crime meant that discussions about whether she would be charged as an adult would likely follow. Court records indicate she initially entered a plea of not guilty, though the case was still in its preliminary stages. The investigation extended beyond just the physical evidence and the suspect. Detectives began piecing together the family dynamics and events leading up to the shooting. They interviewed extended family members, neighbors, school officials, and anyone who might provide insight into the relationship between Tiamoya and her daughter. This case raises important questions about family dynamics and mental health. Have you ever witnessed warning signs in someone close to you that something wasn't right? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might help others recognize similar situations before they escalate to tragedy.
A 16-year-old is now in custody facing murder charges, according to Galveston police, who say she allegedly shot and killed her mother, 34-year-old Tiamoya Moore. One family member told me she's not only heartbroken, but confused.
The last couple of days, I've been feeling like I'm losing my mind. I was questioning, like, why? Why would you do this to your own mama? I just can't believe she's gone, for real.
When you got the news,
I was devastated. Devastated. Didn't want to believe it. Tia will give you the shirt literally off of her back. Tia loved her kids, would do anything for her kids. She was very spiritual, very into God, changed her life around for God. I just want to know what really, like, what caused for that to get to this point to where you had to take your own mama's life.
Galveston police say just before 8, they responded here to Avenue Q, where they found the 34-year-old down on her porch with multiple gunshot wounds.
Suspect, it was reported at the time by witnesses that the suspect had fled the scene. While the location in the 5100 block of Avenue Q was an ongoing crime scene, at some point while investigators were there and performing their investigative duties, the suspect came back up on location, and she was taken into custody at that time.
Alicia tells me the family is processing this loss, including Tiamoya's other 4 children, who are now without a big sister and a mom.
If a child is troubled, then a child is troubled. You can only help them so much. I was so mad at first, but as I got to talking to people and actually just thinking about what might have really happened, or mental health is real. It's gonna take me a lifetime to get over this.
Galveston police say the 16-year-old is in custody without bond. Reporting in Galveston, Leslie Dellis for Fox 26 News.
Following her arrest, Tiamoya's daughter entered the juvenile justice system, a process that differs significantly from adult criminal proceedings. The Jerry J. Esmond Juvenile Justice Center became her temporary home as the legal machinery began to move forward. Court records confirm that the teenager was formally charged with murder in connection with her mother's death. Initial hearings focused on detention status, appointment of legal counsel, and preliminary evidence review. As is standard in juvenile cases, much of the court proceedings remained sealed from public view to protect the minor's privacy rights, despite the severity of the charges. The question of whether to try the 16-year-old as an adult loomed large over the early legal discussions. In Texas, as in many states, prosecutors have the option to request that juveniles accused of serious violent crimes be certified to stand trial as adults, particularly in murder cases. This decision would significantly impact potential sentencing and the overall approach to the case. The defense team began the process of gathering information about the teenager's mental state, family history, and potential mitigating factors. Early indications from family statements suggested the girl may have been troubled, raising questions about mental health issues that might have contributed to the tragedy. For the Galveston County District Attorney's Office, the case presented unique challenges. Prosecuting a juvenile for the murder of her own mother required balancing justice for the victim with consideration of the defendant's age and potential for rehabilitation, a delicate equilibrium that would shape their approach to plea negotiations and trial strategy. As legal proceedings continued, the practical aftermath of Tiamoya's death created immediate challenges for her surviving family members. Arrangements needed to be made for her other children, who had not only lost their mother but now faced the reality that their sibling was accused of causing that loss. Extended family stepped in to provide care and support during this unimaginable crisis. The community response to the tragedy was immediate and multifaceted. Neighbors organized a memorial vigil near Tiamoya's home, creating a temporary shrine with candles, flowers, and photographs. Local churches offered counseling services and prayer gatherings for those affected. The Galveston Independent School District made crisis counselors available to students who knew either Tiamoya or her daughter. As news of the case spread through local media and social networks, public reaction reflected the complex emotions such a tragedy evokes: shock, sadness, confusion, and inevitable speculation about what could drive a child to such violence against their own mother. "I still can't believe she's gone," Alicia Giesinger told local reporters, her voice breaking with emotion. As both a family member and close friend to Tiamoya, Alicia became an unofficial spokesperson for the family in the days following the murder. Tiamoya was the kind of person who would do anything for anybody. She loved her kids more than anything in this world. That's what makes this so hard to understand. The family's grief was complicated by the nature of the crime. Not only were they mourning Tiamoya, but they were also grappling with the fact that another family member, a child, was responsible for her death. This dual tragedy created a unique form of pain, one where the natural support system for grieving was itself fractured by the circumstances. Tiamoya's mother expressed her disbelief in a heart-wrenching interview with KHOU 11. "I keep asking myself why. Why would my granddaughter do this to her own mother? I've lost my daughter, and now in a way, I've lost my granddaughter too. How does a family recover from something like this?" The ripple effects extended to Tiamoya's other children, who faced an unimaginable new reality. Not only had they lost their mother to violence, but their sister was now in custody for the crime. Family members worked to shield the younger children from media attention while trying to provide stability and support during the crisis. Throughout the Galveston community, the impact of Tiamoya's death resonated deeply. Neighbors who witnessed the aftermath of the shooting described lasting trauma. Graciela Molina, who heard the gunshots that night, told reporters, "I can't get the sounds out of my head. This is a neighborhood where people know each other. To think something like this could happen right next door, it changes how safe you feel in your own home." Local schools felt the impact as well, with counselors working to help students process the tragedy. Friends of both Tiamoya and her daughter struggled to reconcile the violent act with the people they knew. Teachers who had interacted with the family described their shock and sadness at the situation. On social media, community news sources like Texas Plug TV and Crime Watch Houston shared videos featuring friends defending Tiamoya's character and requesting privacy for the grieving family. These posts generated hundreds of comments from community members expressing condolences and sharing memories of Tiamoya. "People need to respect the family's pain right now," said one friend in a widely shared Instagram video. Tiamoya was a good person who was working hard to make a better life. Instead of speculation, we should be focusing on supporting her other children and honoring her memory. The tragedy prompted community discussions about family violence, mental health resources, and support systems for troubled youth. Local organizations reported increased calls from parents concerned about their own children's behavior or emotional state, indicating that Tiamoya's story had raised awareness about the importance of early intervention. As the community struggled to make sense of this tragedy, attention turned to the mental health aspects of the case. Family members had indicated that the 16-year-old daughter may have been troubled, a term that hints at underlying issues that might have contributed to the violence. Adolescence is often a turbulent time, but the leap from typical teenage struggles to violence of this magnitude suggests deeper problems that likely went unaddressed or unrecognized. While respecting the privacy of the juvenile involved, it's important to consider how mental health challenges might have played a role in this tragedy. Alicia Giesinger touched on this in her statements to the media. There's only so much family can do when someone is deeply troubled. We can love them, try to help them, but sometimes that's not enough. Mental health is real, and sometimes the signs aren't clear until it's too late. This perspective highlights a critical reality. Families often find themselves on the front lines of mental health crises without adequate training, resources, or support. Parents, siblings, and extended family may recognize that something is wrong but feel powerless to address the underlying issues effectively. For adolescents, mental health challenges can be particularly difficult to identify and address. Typical teenage behaviors like mood swings, desire for privacy, and pushing boundaries can sometimes mask more serious problems. Without specialized knowledge, parents and caregivers may struggle to distinguish between normal developmental phases and warning signs of more significant issues. Access to mental health services remains a significant barrier for many families. Insurance limitations, long waiting lists for providers, stigma around seeking help, and lack of specialized adolescent mental health services can all prevent timely intervention. For families already facing economic or social challenges, these barriers become even more formidable. The tragedy of Tiamoya Moore's death raises important questions about how communities can better support families dealing with mental health challenges. What resources might have made a difference? How can we create systems that identify at-risk youth before crisis points are reached? What role can schools, churches, and community organizations play in providing mental health support and education? While we may never know exactly what led to the violent confrontation between Tiamoya and her daughter, the case underscores the urgent need for greater mental health awareness, reduced stigma around seeking help, and improved access to services for families in crisis. Tiamoya Moore's tragic death offers painful but important lessons about prevention and intervention that might help other families avoid similar tragedies. Mental health awareness and support must be prioritized, especially for adolescents. Early recognition of warning signs, such as dramatic mood changes, increasing isolation, expressions of hopelessness, or fascination with violence, can create opportunities for intervention before crisis points are reached. Communities need to invest in mental health education that helps parents, teachers, and peers recognize these signs and know how to respond. Access to mental health services remains a critical issue. Many communities lack adequate resources for youth mental health treatment, creating long waiting lists for those seeking help. Expanding these services, ensuring insurance coverage, and creating school-based mental health programs could help bridge these gaps and provide timely support to troubled youth. Family communication and intervention strategies are essential protective factors. Open dialogue about emotions, conflicts, and mental health challenges create space for early identification of problems. Family counseling can provide tools for better communication and conflict resolution, potentially preventing escalation to violence. Schools and community organizations play vital roles in supporting youth well-being. Programs focused on emotional regulation, conflict resolution, and trauma support can help young people develop healthier coping mechanisms. After-school activities, mentorship programs, and youth groups provide structure and connection that can be protective for vulnerable adolescents. The availability of firearms in domestic settings significantly increases the lethality of family conflicts. Safe storage practices, education about firearm safety, and consideration of temporary removal of weapons when a family member is in crisis could prevent impulsive acts of violence with irreversible consequences. Crisis management resources like hotlines, mobile crisis teams, and emergency mental health services provide critical support during acute situations. Ensuring families know about these resources before crises occur could make the difference between tragedy and intervention. Perhaps most importantly, reducing stigma around mental health challenges and seeking help is essential. When families feel shame about mental health struggles, they're less likely to reach out for support. Creating communities where these conversations happen openly and without judgment could save lives. The story of Tiamoya Moore and her daughter illustrates how quickly family conflicts can escalate to tragedy when underlying issues remain unaddressed. By learning from this heartbreaking case, communities can work to build stronger safety nets for vulnerable youth and families in crisis. Beyond the tragedy of her death, Tiamoya Moore leaves behind a legacy worth honoring. She was a woman of faith who believed in second chances, both for herself and others. Her return to Galveston represented her commitment to rebuilding her life and creating stability for her family. This resilience and determination deserve to be remembered alongside the circumstances of her death. Friends and family have emphasized Tiamoya's generosity and kindness, how she would give the shirt off her back to someone in need. In honoring her memory, we can recognize how these qualities touched the lives of those around her and created ripples of compassion in her community. As a mother, Tiamoya's devotion to her children defined much of her identity. Family members have spoken about how she put her children first, working to provide for them and create a stable home environment. This maternal love remains part of her legacy, even as we grapple with the tragic irony of how her life ended. Perhaps the most meaningful way to honor Tiamoya's memory is to ensure that her story contributes to greater awareness about mental health, family conflict, and the importance of early intervention. If her tragedy helps even one family recognize warning signs and seek help before violence occurs, her story will have created positive change from profound loss. Say her name. Tiamoya Moore. Not just as a victim of a shocking crime, but as a woman who lived, loved, struggled, and persevered. A mother whose story deserves to be told with dignity and whose memory deserves to be honored. The story of Tiamoya Moore reminds us of the complex, often hidden struggles that can exist within families. It highlights the critical importance of mental health awareness, early intervention, and accessible support services. It shows us how quickly domestic situations can escalate to tragedy when warning signs go unrecognized or unaddressed. But beyond these broader lessons, Tiamoya's story is fundamentally human. It's about a mother who loved her children, a woman working to improve her life, and a family forever changed by a single act of violence. It's about the ripple effects of trauma that extend through families and communities, and the difficult process of healing that follows such profound loss. At Say Her Name, we believe that telling these stories matters, not for sensationalism, but for awareness, education, and honoring the lives of Black women whose stories deserve attention. Tiamoya Moore was more than just a headline or a statistic. She was a daughter, a mother, a friend, and a woman of faith whose life had value and meaning beyond the tragedy of her death. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing to Say Her Name and sharing this video to help raise awareness about mental health and family support. Your engagement helps us continue telling these important stories and bringing attention to cases that might otherwise be overlooked. What other cases would you like us to cover? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, behind every story we tell is a real person whose life mattered and whose name deserves to be spoken. Say Her Name. Tiamoya Moore.